Hello, I am Vaughn Albury.
And I'm Adama Williams. Welcome to another episode of Ed Table Talk Unplugged, a show produced by the communications section of the Ministry of Education, where we dissect issues surrounding education. We feature various stakeholders in education, highlighting their roles, challenges, strategies, and successes.
Yes, Adamo. The Ministry of Education supports the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. Hence, the ministry continues to expand its spaces in mainstream school environments to accommodate students with special needs.
Yes, Vaughn. Meantime, there are a number of institutions specifically designed to address the educational needs of students with disabilities. And it's interesting to know how these students and the facilitators of their learning are faring through COVID-19 pandemic. Today's table discussion is catering to students with special needs during the pandemic. We have, as part of this conversation today, Principal of the Center for the Deaf, Mrs. Sonja Rolle, and later, Mr. Mitthayo Barry, a teacher from the Marjorie Davis Institute, and Mr. Trevor Greene, a special education teacher at the Carlton E. Francis Primary School.
Yes, and our discussion begins with Mrs. Rolle, Principal of the Center for the Deaf. Mrs. Rolle, welcome to the show.
So good to be here in such an auspicious show. I can't imagine.
There you go. Well, how long have you been working with students with special needs?
Only about 39 years.
39
Wow.
years.
Only.
Okay, I think it's important to first identify the common challenges which are faced by those with special needs and the institutions that cater to them. I would imagine that some of these challenges may be related to the public's perception of special needs students. What's your response to that?
Yes. For a long time, special schools have always had a stigma, okay, where parents were reluctant to send their children to such schools. And it all has to do with education. Okay, so we have parents who are in denial. You know, you don't want to come to the reality that there is a special need in your child, and so they just move them around until they get to the place where the other school would reject them, and then they have to fall back on a special needs school in the Bahamas. By this time, most of the time, it's very late. And a lot of the education that these students should have gotten, the foundation that they should have gotten, has been lost. And so that has always been the case, but we're seeing changes in that area. As a matter of fact, today, there are many students, Bahamian students, who were born deaf and no longer have to attend a special institution because there are so many different devices now. There is the cochlear implant that actually jumpstarts the nerve with a child who was born profoundly deaf, and they can sit in a regular classroom. There are hearing aids that can bring a child right up to a certain level if they're perhaps only moderately deaf, and they can sit in a regular classroom with preferential seating. And so there are things that we are doing now, but there are some students that will have to come to a special needs school like mine.
The COVID-19 pandemic, I refer to it as the beast.
Oh boy.
It just came unannounced, and it just interrupted life in all spheres. And in the world of education, we had to adjust, just like any other sphere.
That's right.
Now, for you in special education, what was that adjustment like?
That was a very serious adjustment, because one day it was face-to-face, and the next day it was virtual learning. Nobody was prepared. Teachers, parents, students, nobody was prepared. But because we had a very good cadre of teachers who were very computer savvy, they were able to jump into it right away. They were able to create Zoom accounts and started, first of all, communicating with parents. And our students struggled quite a lot because this was new to them. And you have to understand, our students are visual learners. If this was never exposed to them, if they never saw it demonstrated in the classroom, and now all of a sudden, I have to learn on a very small little screen.
Yes.
A very small little screen on a Zoom, on a Zoom platform, or a Teams platform that the Ministry of Education provided, or a Google Classroom, very small little screen. Bear in mind, my children learn, as I said, visually and with total communication. So they depend a lot on how the mouth is formed, especially for those who has some residual hearing. And the facial is very important. They couldn't see certain things, and certain signs is not going to carry very well on this little platform. They struggled. I have a little boy, a high flyer, would, be on the honor roll every time. This boy did not want to come to classes. Wow. Did not want to come to classes. His mommy showed us a picture of pulling him out of bed. This would have never happened. He loves school. He loves his teacher. He could not deal with the technology.
Wow.
It was a challenge, a big
challenge.
challenge for him.
Well, for me, I got the opportunity to cover the assignment of your graduation last year. I was most impressed. Where are those graduates today, if you know? Could you tell us?
That's a beautiful question. Beautiful question. Yes. 2 of those graduates have actually matriculated to BTVI.
Very good.
BTVI. And they're doing very well. We are still not getting enough support for them, because the person might be there interpreting the lesson, but they need a teacher assistance at the end of the session, because there will be concepts that they're going to be introduced to in that classroom, and the interpreter is not there to break that concept down to them. The interpreter only signs what is being said by the teacher.
Correct.
They now need a follow-up, a teacher who can mentor them a little more. And because that is what is provided for in America. Yeah. They now have a teacher tutor when the class is finished, who go now and assist them with the classes. But my children have good tenacity. They will work through it.
They're sharp.
Sharp. And with parental support, I believe that they're doing well.
So tell us, what's your school population like now? Has it increased or decreased? And what mode of education are you now in? Hybrid? What are you doing? Tell us, how's the school population?
The population is now 26. As a matter of fact, we took on 3 new students in the early childhood section. And it's all because of a very good audiologist who has been assisting the school very well. And before I don't want to lose this trend, screening in the Bahamas. We are not doing a good job with screening in the Bahamas. Okay, and so if we screen more, we have a lot of children that have hearing problems, but they're not being tested. Gotcha. And think about the Family Islands at this time. Yeah. If we're not doing a good job in New Providence, wow, you can imagine on the Family Islands what's happening there.
Well, on that note, I'd let your last question.
Yes. Speak about parents, because we had a conversation earlier. Mm-hmm. Speak about their support, yes, for their students who are in those situations, and speak a bit about the community and how they have been assisting, especially during the pandemic.
Yes, during the pandemic, I have seen, and I am so delighted to report that I've seen an increase of parental support, because now, so many times the children are using the parent cell phone to assist them on these platforms. And so the parent was there, especially the younger ones. Parents sat there in the classroom and they started learning more vocabulary words to assist with the children. One time ago, they were saying, when we asked children, what did you have for lunch or for dinner? They'll say green bush. And now the parents are learning that's broccoli.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
So they're learning new words.
Yes.
They're
And
learning
the
new
parents.
words. And the
Well,
parents.
Mrs.
The
Sonja
parents
Rolle.
are learning it.
We're all learning.
Yes,
through the
we're all
pandemic.
learning. In fact, education involves us all.
Can I teach you all a new sign language?
How quick can it be?
A new word. There, right here. That's right there.
What is that?
Coronavirus.
Do it again?
You put this on one hand and you switch it around and
Oh,
say,
just like the graphic.
Just like
Corona.
Corona.
Oh, I learned a bit of sign language
that's
today.
a virus. It's very bad and it'll spread very easily. Corona.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listen, we can all learn. We've
Yes.
reached the end of our first segment. Mrs. Sonja Rolle, Principal of the Center for the Deaf. It has been a pleasure having you.
Certainly.
All the best to you as you continue to make a positive impact on our education system. After the break, we'll be joined by two special education teachers. You're watching Ed Table Talk Unplugged. Stay with us. The Ministry of Education, in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, advises students, teachers, administrators, and staff to adhere to the following steps in an effort to minimize the risk of COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus. Step 1. Be sure to wash hands before and after you eat, after using the bathroom, touching money, shaking hands, or emptying the trash. You may also use hand sanitizers throughout the day. Frequently wash hands with soap and water for 20 seconds and rinse with clean water. Dry hands with clean paper towels. Step 2. Cough or sneeze into your elbow or sleeve and not into your hands or into the ear. Or cover your nose or mouth with a tissue. Immediately dispose of the tissue into the trash. Be sure to wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. Step 3. Do not drink from the same cans, bottles, or cups of other persons. Do not share eating utensils such as forks and spoons. Do not share school supplies such as pencils or pens. Step 4. Germs can live on many surfaces. Be sure to wipe and disinfect desks, school supplies, railings, and other surfaces that are regularly touched by others. Step 5. Avoid close contact with anyone who is coughing and sneezing. Let's do what we can to help minimize the risk of the coronavirus.
Hi there. A lot is happening in education, and that's why the Ministry of Education wants to keep you abreast of the latest information. So here's how. MOE provides a variety of programs, including Ed Talk, Ed Up, Ed Tidbits, Ed Table Talk Unplugged. Log into this channel, the Bahamas Learning Channel, MOE's Facebook page, and YouTube channel. We want to keep you in the know. Welcome back to Ed Table Talk Unplugged. Today's focus is catering to students with special needs during the pandemic. In these two final segments, we're pleased to have Mr. Mitthayo Barry, a teacher from the Marjorie Davis Institute, and Mr. Trevor Greene, a special education teacher at the Carlton E. Francis Primary School. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, it is such a delight to have two males who are making a positive impact in our society in the area of special education at that. So it's so good to have you here. Now let's start with Mr. Barry. You're at the Marjorie Davis Institute. Tell us, what exactly is the Marjorie Davis Institute for our viewers who have no idea what it is?
Okay, yes, I love the question. Marjorie Davis Institute for Special Education. It's an intervention center where we focus on students for a short period of time. So one of the most important components for us is our research. So after having the students for so long, special education involves a lot of writing down information, so you have to keep good records. So I guess one of the main things for us is research, how these children can perform better when they go back into the regular schools. So that's about it. quick scope of it.
Interesting. And what age group do you deal with?
Love the question as well. Primary, 1 through 3, third grade. So we go from first grade to the third grade. So the oldest child we might have should be around 9 to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been teaching?
I've only been teaching for 2 years now.
For 2 years.
For 2 years now.
And I'm sure by the end of the show, our viewers are going to say, ask themselves, was he really teaching in special education for only 2 years?
Sometimes I ask myself that question.
But anyway, you know, we're in the COVID-19 pandemic, and our special education needs children, they could not be left behind. So you, as well as everyone else, had to make major adjustments. What were those adjustments that you had to make?
Yes.
As a teacher?
As a teacher. So some of the adjustments that I had to make were, I guess, trying to engage my students over a computer screen. We know special education involves hands-on, involves us being intimate with the student, with the children. For instance, I can't do certain activities over a computer screen because it requires me to show them modeling. So it was a lot, it wasn't just like this much simple. It was like this much difficult.
Wow.
So we're just trying to adjust over a computer screen how to gain this one's attention, how to make this one efficient in this area. So it involved a lot of, I guess, research, trying to figure out what works best over a computer screen.
Strategizing.
So coming up with a lot of strategies and intervention to help these students for such a short period of time. Because my first set of students who I had during COVID, they returned to their regular schools. So I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to do. So, but I feel like they're in good hands. I feel like they're in good hands.
So impassioned.
Mr. Greene, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned the fact that the Ministry of Education promotes inclusion in education. You facilitate that at the Carlton E. Francis Primary School. That's a big school. How has your journey been for you and your students?
During this pandemic specifically?
Yes.
It has been, I would say, meaningful.
Meaningful?
Yes, it was a meaningful experience because when it first started, I had to actually teach the kids how to use the computers, the tablets, and whatever device they were using at the time, because some of them were on cell phones. So technology was something I had to look at to try to sort out, because even with the tablets that the ministry sent, you had to ensure that the child didn't put any games, so anything that would distract them during the lesson. Once that was sorted out, then we had to engage the parents in the lesson to ensure that the students know how to maneuver, how to operate, how to switch screen, how to do certain things that you would, like activities that you would have on the screen for them to do. There was one little challenge that I had, but just a back note, these students, you have to also pay attention to their sensory issues and whatever modalities that they may be lacking in. There were some challenges, but I'll give you an example how we got over it. I did some research on discovering that if I bring my student into the lesson, how do we do that? Okay, say for instance, I'm teaching a lesson on coins. If I want a child to come into the lesson, I would say to that student, okay, what I want you to do is go through Zoom, go around the house and collect as many coins as you can. Collect as many coins as you can. I put a time limit on it, and when they come back to the screen, we go through it, and then we turn it from teacher-centered to student-centered, because now they're gonna show me and they're gonna describe these coins to me and let me know what this coin is, what that coin. And the interesting fact is you actually pull the parents in as well, because when they go and collect these coins, the parents say, okay, that's a quarter, that's a 5 cent, that's a 10, because as you would imagine, none of the parents would want the students to fail or get it incorrect, especially in front of other children. So it became more student-centered, and I tried to keep it that way so that it's more meaningful. There's more meaningful learning, more engaging, and the students actually, control what's going on in the class. But, I direct them, where it's needed.
But what we didn't said at the outset, at the Carlton E. Francis Primary School, How many children are there in special ed there, and how are they segmented, or are they all together?
Okay, I personally have eight official students. I have an extra two.
Okay, we know how
Go
that
ahead.
Yeah, because you see the students and they need help, and you really don't want to let them, fall in the cracks. How it's been? It's been very excited. Another thing too, what I did even prior to the pandemic, we got some tablets in, so the students had a basically good
Nice.
idea as to how to operate the tablet and what's going on. So when the ministry sent those wonderful tablets down and those nice big 10-inch screen, they were very happy.
Yes.
And we did a lot of good work on it. The inclusion process at the school, for the most part, before the pandemic, what I did was I allowed the students to go in when it was lunchtime or break time. I allowed them to go and mingle with the other students so that they would be able to, socialize, get out those nice social skills that they would require to function out there in society when they would have finished, with schooling. And another thing too is when they go to break and lunch, they would take their monies and they would go. Sometime I would observe just to see what's going on. But for the most part, I would just let them go and bring their lunch back. It's a good thing because they learned how to make change and how to function in a grocery store, food store sort of environment.
I see.
Yes.
So indeed, it has been meaningful. Your
Yes.
words.
Very meaningful.
Very meaningful.
Yes.
But we have to take a break. I know you have a lot to say. We're going to continue the discussion after this break. The Ministry of Education encourages parents to ensure that their children are engaged in the learning process. If your child is experiencing difficulty accessing their classes, please call your child's school for assistance. If your children are unable to participate in virtual learning, instructional and learning packets have been prepared and must be collected from the school. Upon completion, please return them to the school for assessment. The Ministry of Education seeks to ensure that every student enrolled in the public school system has a digital device to facilitate their learning. Parents of students in preschool and grades 1 through 3 who do not have the means to secure an appropriate device should seek assistance from their child's school. A government-issued identification is required.
Welcome back to our final segment. You're watching Ed Table Talk Unplugged. Our guests, Mitthayo Barry and Trevor Greene, both special education teachers, giving their perspectives on how the needs of special ed students are being met throughout the pandemic. At the Marjorie Davis Institute, I've heard others say that special education can have some of the most rewarding experiences. In your short time, 2 years that you've been teaching, you've already proven that by what you told us. But give us examples at the Marjorie Davis, and how many students are there?
Okay, so in my class right now, I have about 10 students. In the whole institution, we have, in the entire school, we have about 60 students. 60 students, that's who are there now. But registered on paper, it's like 90. So just trying to reach out to the parents to help them, come into schools, because we need them there. The students need to be there. And to answer your question, rewarding, I love it, because I've been there only for 2 years, and I've seen, because when you see, it's great joy within your heart.
Hallelujah.
To see that a child grasp a concept that you have been teaching for so long.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And they even feel, and see, the thing is, we are afraid to praise these students. I'm telling you, when they get something right, we're having a party, we're having a party. You see what I'm saying? And the reason we do that is because it builds their confidence level. And I guess even as adults, we struggle with, I guess, our confidence as well. So imagine a child who we have to grow up.
Esteem.
You see what I'm saying? So their self-esteem we have to work with. Their confidence level we have to bring them. So not only are you working working academically, you're also dealing with their social skills.
Yes.
So I guess in rewarding in that way. Rewarding in that way,
Definitely. Mr. Greene?
There's so many, but I would narrow down one particular, I wouldn't say incident, but one particular activity that we did. I started off teaching them and showing short videos on Wendy's, their menu and ordering and how to do that. And then we did a field trip to Wendy's where the parents, I sent home a letter, asked them to give the students some monies so that we could go to Wendy's. And we went to Wendy's near the school. And the students went on the line. I sat down and I watched. They ordered their food. They came, they got their change, paid, got their changes. They sat down and they ate. And looking at them, just listening to them, looking at them, listening to them talk. I ordered this from Wendy's. I bought this. I bought that. And look, this is what she gave me back. So I'd say, how much is that she gave you? You know, and when they came and they gave the answer and it was correct, even sometimes when it wasn't correct, I'd say, great job, but you know, that's what that is. You know, and we had a wonderful time there, you know, and that was so rewarding because I saw in their eyes and their facial expression, that look of success and, you know, I'm actually out in the real world and I actually did something, you know, did something for myself. You know, and that was so rewarding, you know, for me.
So every child, every human being has a unique purpose in life, and everyone, like we said earlier, has a contribution to make.
Well, we got about a minute left. Your last question.
All right, so the Minister of Education, the Honorable Jeffrey Lloyd, he made an appeal for persons in 2019 for teachers specifically who wanted to probably transition into the special education area. Scholarships were offered, and since then, the response hasn't been too great. What can you do, or what can you say to attract young people or anyone into this field?
In 30 seconds.
All right, so what I would say is that every day you would be presented a challenge because you would also have to look for intervention to help that child. Another thing is you will help these children, you will help your students to become successful. You will be able to work with them more. You will be able to build lifelong experience because they are, I guess, a lesser number of students. You'll be able to build lifelong relationships with these students and their parents. So I would just sum it up with those two.
I would say that the best thing that I feel to draw young persons into the profession would be to do something similar like this. Bring the cameras into the classroom. Let them see how successful these students can be. Let them see the interaction between the teacher and the students. Let them have a visual as to, you know, the class size, the reward of I got it.
Yes.
You know, the step-by-step instruction. It's for me, it's fun. I have a ball every day.
There you go. Well, we really like to thank both of you because you've made an impact on me.
Yes.
And I know that special ed is in good hands with you, Mr. Mitthayo Barry and Mr. Trevor Greene. They're respectively at the Carlton E. Francis School and the Marjorie Davis Institute. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your valuable, or I perhaps say invaluable contribution.
Yes.
The takeaway from the show is that everyone matters and everyone has a contribution to make. If you would like to receive frequent updates on what's happening in the Ministry of Education, subscribe to 819 BMOE. That's 819-2663. You can also visit our website or hit us up on Facebook. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and other social media platforms. On behalf of my able co-host, Mrs. Adama Williams, I am Vaughn Aubrey. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.